Hi everybody, it's Colin Ellis here. It's Monday morning, so it must be time for another Culture and Coffee podcast. It is the 22nd of November, and how are you doing? Have you done your Christmas shopping yet? If you're doing it online, it's probably too late. Probably too. Remember when online shopping was a novelty? Oh my God, you order it here and then it arrives like a week later. Not anymore. Saw a guy delivered a box here the other day. We've got like a lockable front gate. Just threw the box over. Just threw. Like I was sat there. He didn't even press the bell. He just threw the box over. It was all dented and stuff. It's like, yeah. So we've gone from isn't it a novelty, isn't it amazing, to just chucking stuff. It does, of course. That's not everybody. Please don't be offended if you're a delivery person. Yeah, but 22nd November. Yeah, that's where we are. Now I've got to get on with it actually today, and no fluffing around today because I'm doing a speech early this morning. So I just got to do the podcast, get it churred, get on with my day. Yes, so we should do that. But I hope you're okay wherever you are. It's going a bit nuts here. I'm doing it again. It's going a bit nuts in the world again with the virus and Europe and shutting down. Just it's weird because here in Australia we're kind of living the life again now because of our incredible vaccination rates. All right. So this week's coffee. Lots to talk to today. This week's coffee is a Girma Bekele from the Kochere Woreda in Guji, Ethiopia. So we are going back to the origins of coffee. We're going where it all started, Ethiopia. Just my favorite coffee. It must be the altitude, or I don't know what it is. Guji is south of Ethiopia. It's a 7-hour drive to Addis Ababa. It's not far from the border of Kenya, as you look at the map anyway. And this particular coffee has notes of marshmallow. It's a new one. Wild cherry. It's a wild cherry. It's like a normal cherry, but wearing a leather jacket and riding a motorcycle. Hey man, can't do the accent. Hey man, look at me. I'm smoking on my bike. Wild cherry and lemon. It's got it all going on, this coffee. Let me just taste it. Wow, wild cherry. Actually, it's got a really nice aftertaste, actually. It is from the Little Marionette in New South Wales because, yes, folks, I left the States. Woo-hoo. More about that in a minute. Now, they've sent a little card, and I'm a sucker for a little coffee card. If you ever buy coffee, you should always read the little card because people put these things together with love and care and all of those great things. And so this is great because on the back it's got like a little altitude. It tells you the altitude that it's grown at, which is great, which is 1900 meters. It's like a little scale, almost like a little ladder down the side here. It tells you when it was grown, which is 2021. So it's Ethiopia, Girma Bekele, Woreda, natural, Walisho Kurumi Dega. Girma Bekele is a motivated smallholder coffee producer based in Biloya village. He is one of the few in his area who pre-float the coffee cherries, ensuring that only the ripest and sweetest ones end up in your cup. The specific lot is a blend of the Walisho, Dega, and Kurumi varieties, that's the bean itself, selected specifically by Girma for their productivity and superior cup quality. Due to the Ethiopian government change in laws, Girma is now able to directly participate in the international coffee market, experimenting with different coffee types. So there you go. Fabulous. The Little Marionette itself, by the way, in New South Wales, was founded by Ed Cutliff with the intention of making coffee accessible to all. I love the fact that these people have a little dream. Every story that I read, they have a little dream and they're like, that's what I'm going to do. And so it started as a little hole-in-the-wall cafe in Sydney's inner west, and now they're a big roaster, which is fabulous. They manually roast all the beans in Roselle, which sounds like a I don't know, safari animal. Roselle in Sydney's inner west, using a refurbished 1930s Probat roaster. Fabulous, delicious coffee. So what did I do this weekend? I tell you what I did yesterday. I had a lie-in, and a lie-in for me is about, I don't know, 8:30. Like, it's never late. I remember my dad used to sleep to, like, I don't know, quarter to 11 on a Sunday morning. I mean, you may do. I'm not judging. I'm not judging. That just might be that might be the same for you. But for me, like 8:30 is a massive lie-in. Sunday mornings, I usually have the football to watch. Everton played overnight, so I've got to do that today at some stage. I have to avoid the score and then watch the game at some stage today. But I watched so this week, as I'm recording it, this week, Get Back, which is a documentary about the last Beatles session by Peter Jackson, the director of Lord of the Rings, who recently sold Weta Studios for $1 billion, as you do. He's releasing the 3-part series. I think it's on Disney Plus. It is Disney Plus. Now, if you haven't bought Disney Plus, you should go and get it just for The Mandalorian, which is amazing. You're welcome, Disney, by the way. I'm getting nothing for this. I'm not plugging. No one's approaching me for advertising saying, Colin, can you plug Get Back? If you want me to speak at you at a leadership retreat, by the way, Disney, I'm happy to do that as well. I'm only doing California, though. I'm not doing any of this Australia rubbish. If you want me, let's go over there. Now, Let It Be as an album, most of Let It Be as the album was written in the basement. So much like me recording this podcast in the basement. So many similarities. I'm not saying I'm the next Beatles, because there's only one of me and there was 5 of them. Sorry, there was 4 of them. I don't even know how many Beatles there are. It's because I've got 5 things here. I've got 5 things that I want to tell you about the Beatles. So I'm obviously distracting myself as I'm talking. Get Back is released this week. So I thought what I would do is, kind of in honor of that, is I tell you 5 things that you might not know about the Beatles in Liverpool. Right, because growing up in Liverpool, it's about music, lad. It's about comedy. Like, everybody's a comedian. Like, all comedians hate playing Liverpool because people are, like, funnier than the comedians themselves. And it's about footy. It's about the footy. It's about Everton, Tranmere. There's no other teams in Liverpool. So there's 5 things you might not know about the Beatles in Liverpool. Like, it surrounds you. It's everywhere. It's like literally everywhere. And so the first thing is, if it wasn't for tuberculosis, the last great pandemic, not as a scale, if it wasn't for tuberculosis, Ringo Starr would never have been a Beatle. He contracted TB when he was 12. Oh, his real name, by the way, is Richard Starkey. If you didn't know that, that could be a 6th thing, I suppose. He caught TB when he was 12, and he was a bit of a sickly kid, so he was like in and out of hospital when he was young. But in those days, they didn't know much about TB at all, and it was an airborne disease. You pass it on, all of that stuff, right? And so they committed him to a sanatorium for 2 years. Imagine that as a 12-year-old kid being committed to a sanatorium. But there's loads of other kids in there with the same afflictions. But to keep the kind of patients amused, they did like the nurses and the doctors, they did a musical program. And he picked up these cotton bobbins, these 2 big cotton bobbins, like wooden sticks with which you'd wind cotton around. And he used them as drums. And that's how he kind of learned a love of the drum. His name Ringo, by the way, it's called Ringo. Starkey you can understand, right? Star, it's just an abbreviation of Starkey. But the first professional band that he joined, like properly, was a group called Rory Storm and the Hurricanes. And the lead singer, Rory Storm, nicknamed him Ringo because he wore a lot of rings. So there you go. So that's the first thing. Second thing is in Stanley Street in Liverpool, which is like right in the heart of the city. There's a sculpture of Eleanor Rigby. Like, there's a concrete bench, and it's almost like a life-size sculpture. Like on my lunch break, I used to see people, like tourists, just sat next to this sculpture of Eleanor Rigby having the picture taken. Right, it's just a long line of people waiting to have the picture taken. But it was actually designed and made by a guy called Tommy Steele, and Tommy Steele was a huge star in his own right in the 50s, and effectively was Britain's first teen idol. He played a gig in Liverpool in 1981, and he thought, there isn't really, other than in Matthew Street itself where the Cavern Club is, there isn't really kind of many tributes to the Beatles. So he offered to design and build this statue himself which he did in 1982. He was paid threepence, threepence for the statue. Eleanor Rigby, by the way, actually a fictitious character, according to Paul McCartney. But there is actually a grave of someone called Eleanor Rigby in Woolton, in the church where Paul McCartney first met John Lennon when they were playing A Fate in 1957. It's a great story. So many great Beatles stories. All right, that's the second thing. Third thing, Beatlemania itself started in a place called Litherland on the 27th of December 1960. Now, Litherland is about 5 miles north. Like, everyone thinks it's the Cavern Club, but it's not. It started in Litherland. Because when the Beatles came back from Hamburg, from Germany, they were just looking for places to play, and they got a booking in Litherland Town Hall just after Christmas. And they were advertised as direct from Hamburg, so people thought they were German because they weren't that well known. Like, people thought they were German, and obviously they weren't. They were paid £6. They played there 20 times, but their first gig changed everything because it was like a massive dance hall that was all full, and like people were expecting to play dance music and they didn't. They played rock and roll, and people started screaming, and that first gig changed everything, according to Paul McCartney. The Cavern Club, that's the third thing. The fourth thing is the Cavern Club. Now, they first played the Cavern Club in February the next year, in February 1961. Now, the Cavern Club opened in 1957. The owner at that time was a guy called Alan Sitner, and he named the club after a Paris jazz club because he wanted to open like the best jazz club outside London. That was his goal because he loved jazz. And he named it after the Paris Jazz Club, Le Caveau de la Huchette. So they called it the Cavern Club. Now, the Beatles, their first performance there in February was an experiment. Because it was a jazz club, what Sitner decided to do was to experiment at lunchtimes. And he was just like, I'll put a few rock and roll gigs on at lunchtime for up-and-coming bands, and we'll see where that takes us. And the rest, as they say, is history. The Beatles played at the Cavern Club 292 times. I went to the Cavern Club as a nightclub goer probably about 350 times. It's not that many. We used to go every Saturday. Saturday nights was Cavern Club nights. We used to get the train into Liverpool and kind of work our way down to the Cavern Club. You'd get there maybe 11 o'clock, something like that. It's a great venue. Although in those days you could smoke in venues, and if you had Cavern Clubs underground, right, you used to stink of smoke. You used to need to shower when you got in because you just smelled so much of smoke because there was nowhere. I remember one New Year's Eve we were in there, and there was a fire alarm, and like, if there had ever been a fire down there, like, it would have been catastrophic because like everyone, there's like 2 emergency exits, and you're crawling over yourself to get out. It's awful. Anyway, that's the fourth thing. The fifth thing, which is about the Cavern Club itself, is the original Cavern Club was actually demolished to build a car park. It's crazy. So the club that I went to, and the club that now exists if you go as a tourist, is on the other side of Matthew Street, and it's like an authentic reconstruction, which they did in the 80s, but it gives you a real sense, the essence of the Beatles. Anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about vision. Let's talk about vision statements. I'm asking this week, is your vision uninspiring? It's coffee, Beatles, and culture today, I suppose. Oh, Beatles. Like, the Beatles music is just great. It's just great. All right, vision statement. For me, vision statement is one of the most important parts of business. It's the thing that when you get it right, it really, or it should light a fire inside people. It should be like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm loving that. You know, you take something like New Zealand rugby. New Zealand rugby, for me, have got one of the best vision statements. The vision statement is inspiring and unifying New Zealanders. Like, how good is that? It's got nothing to do with sport. It's got nothing to do with rugby. It's got everything to do with inspiring and unifying the country. And as someone who lived in New Zealand for 6 years, like, it really does. The country just comes to a standstill when the All Blacks play. The other great thing about it is they're so encouraging. Like, not like Brits and the like football team. It's just like, oh, know we're going to win. Remember, my dad said, you're not an England fan. You're not an England fan, son. You're an Everton fan. Okay. But it does, it inspires and unifies New Zealanders, and everything that the organisation does is geared towards inspiring and unifying New Zealanders. And sure, it's about the best players and the best coaches and the best training. It's about all of that, but it's also about how do the team come together? What work do they do in the community? How do they represent New Zealand when they're back at their clubs? All of these things. When like the All Blacks, as they know, they lost against Ireland last week. Like, it's a national tragedy, but then they very quickly get over it and move on. But it is, it's that important. But that's the importance of vision. It sits at the top, really, of what the organisation's trying to do. So if you take business more generally, you've got your vision, this kind of aspirational statement of what you want the organization to become, right? That's at the very top of, what it means to be a business. So what you want from your leadership team to say, this is where we're going. Like, this is what we're doing. This is where we're headed, to be the, biggest one of these, or to inspire whatever, or, you look at someone like Tesla, accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. Yeah, it's a really powerful vision statement. It says nothing about cars, says nothing about batteries necessarily, says nothing about, kind of your wild cherry CEO. Accelerating this world's transition to sustainable energy. Like, that's where we're going. Like, do you want to come? Do you want to get on board? Because that's where we're going. That's what we're doing. And so that's, the vision, it's something you can generally talk about during an interview to potential staff, and they're like, oh, that sounds really cool. So you've got your vision, that's where you're going. Then underpinning that is the strategy to sort of say, listen, if that's our vision, in the next 1 to 3 years is what we're going to do. Now, sometimes, you refresh your vision 1 to 3 years, depending on what the organisation wants to achieve. And for me, the vision should be achievable. If it's unachievable, then it's a demotivator. If it's too long, it's too wordy, I'll get back to that in a minute. It's a demotivator because people are like, where? What are you talking about? What? Where are we going? Don't get that. So, that's the vision. So strategy, typically 1 to 3 years. We used to write 10-year strategies, and they were out of date like the next week. And you'd put all of this effort into writing a 10-year strategy. It was nonsense. So your strategy underpins your vision. Sometimes people do it the other way around. Fair enough. If this is the strategy, then what's our vision? I do some of those exercises. Usually it's the other way around. And then out of the strategy falls your goals. So if this is our strategy, here's all the stuff that we need to do by when in order for us to achieve the vision. It's really simple. We don't teach people this, but it's really, really simple. And then the way you deliver your goals is through business as usual and your projects. Like, business as usual, the stuff you need to keep doing day to day in order to be successful. Projects is a bunch of new stuff to either fix some of the other stuff and to grow the business. And then underpinning all of that is the culture. So the vision is a massive part of the culture because it really, really sets the direction. I always talk about the fact that a vision is at the heart of great workplace culture. It's at the heart. It's crucially important. So a vision is a short but clear picture of what the future looks like. And it kind of says, this is what we want to become. Short but clear. And there's a great book by Benjamin Zander, Rosamund Stone Zander. Benjamin Zander is a conductor, and he's got a fabulous TED Talk. If you haven't seen it, but just Google Benjamin Zander TED Talk. He talks about how we use music. It's awesome. But they wrote a great book called The Art of Possibility. And in The Art of Possibility, they talk about vision. And they say a vision helps to inspire and capture aspiration. It's really important. Capture aspiration. Short but clear picture. But the second bit of it is just as important. And assist people in overcoming the inherent incohesion associated in moving away from the familiar. So what they're saying, and this is what a vision statement is good for, what they're saying is, this is what we want to become. It's short but clear. It's easy to understand. Members of staff have been involved in creating it. That's great. I'll come to that in a second. Oh, but by the way, we're not going back. We're always going there. So at that point, you put in a stake in the ground to say, this vision statement is the future. This is what we are going to pin We're going to base every decision that we make around this vision statement. And that's a demonstration then to staff that you're taking this seriously. Is we're moving forward, we're not moving backward. And I don't think enough organizations do that with their vision statement. I think like many things in culture, it's like tick the box, got a vision, tick, values, tick, set of behaviors, tick. And it's not that doing these things is wrong. It's not wrong. You've got to do them, but you've got to do them and then use them in the way that they were intended. And so the vision statement really does, provide that basis for strength, that basis for inspiration, that basis for future focus, the basis for transformation. I met an organization last week, really exciting times, doing a transformation program. And I'd written an article for someone, I think. And they said, oh, you said that transformation starts with a redefinition of culture. I was like, well, yeah, it does. And they were like, can you just expand on that? I was like, well, the thing, when you use the word transformation, what you're actually transforming is the culture. You might be implementing technology, but you're transforming the culture. And in order to transform the culture, you have to reset what it looks like so that people can kind of gradually work and almost kind of work into it. And you've got to do that at day one. Otherwise, nothing ever transforms. What you try and do is transform something after the event. You implement a new, ERP system. And then you try and transform the culture afterwards. It's too late. It's too late because then you're asking people to immediately move. Cultures evolve, they don't change. You ask people to immediately move. Whereas when you redefine the culture and reset the vision at the start, we've given them something to help them overcome the inherent incohesion associated in moving away from the familiar, right? So we've given them that. So transformation always starts with a redefinition of culture. And then you have to have a program of events that helps people with their behavior every single month, right? It helps people with their skills every single month. And you're always focused on the vision. How does this line up to the vision? And during the pandemic, of course, people's visions changed, and yet some organizations didn't change their vision. So employees became confused to go, yeah, we've got this vision to be the biggest one of these in the world, but actually we've just lost 20% of our workforce as a result of the pandemic. And again, organizations aren't thinking enough about culture. They're not thinking enough about the importance of all of these components and asking themselves, well, what do we need to do to redefine the culture to inspire and unify people again? There was a survey done by the Global Institute for Women's Leadership by King's College and King's College in London earlier this year. And they found that only 30% of organizations that they surveyed said there's a consensus on their vision for the future. 30%, so it's less than a third. And then you think about all the employees working within those organizations, what must they be feeling? Just in uncertainty all of the time. So there is a real need to redefine it. And then, when I talk about it being at the heart of every decision, so, you should be asking yourselves with a vision, does it act as a motivator for staff and the subcultures they work within? Because each subculture should have its own vision aligned. So if you're working finance, you should have your vision aligned to the organization's vision. How are you inspiring and motivating your own staff? How are you kind of making the organization's vision relevant for you? It's how subcultures work. Great organization culture is made up of great subcultures. So does it act as a motivator? Does the activity that you're undertaking, either business as usual or project, does it align with the vision? Does it get you that little bit closer to where you're going? Does hiring this particular individual improve our chances of achieving the vision? Or are you just hiring them because you need someone with a pulse? You're not really thinking about what they're going to add further down the track. And then you're going to blame them for not putting the effort in when really it's your fault because you rushed it. Will project provide outcomes to improve chances? All of these questions. And then ultimately, is the vision still achievable? But it's got to be short but clear. Short, 6 words. No buzzwords, no kind of long phrases, like Lego, inventing the future of play. 5 words. Brilliant. Like inventing, not conforming to the future of play, inventing the future of play. Love that one from Lego. And the staff have got to be involved with all cultural activity. I can't stress this enough. I've talked about it on other episodes. The staff have to be involved. Because if the staff aren't involved, it becomes somebody else's vision. If it's just the leadership team doing it in the boardroom one day, let's come up with a vision here and now. Like, people are just going to say, yeah, that's not our vision. That belongs to the leadership team, not us. So if you're doing any kind of cultural activity, it's important to get the staff involved, have a facilitated session such that they own it and go, cool, that's our vision. Now, what behaviors, what principles of collaboration do we need in order to deliver that vision? And that's, that's when you get that true ownership, and that's when it becomes inspiring for people. It becomes this motivator every day. And then, and you talk to employees like, all right, who do you work for? It's like, oh, I work for Virgin Media. Oh, what do Virgin Media do? We build connections that really matter. Boom. There's your vision statement. Virgin are great at doing vision statements. Who do you work for? Virgin Active. Virgin Active, what do you do? We make exercise irresistible. Really? If you go into a Virgin Active gym as well, you see making exercise irresistible all like everywhere. Like you walk in, you're like, oh, this is cool. It makes you want to, does it make you want to exercise? I don't know if it can make you exercise, but you get that feeling, right? You get that feeling. And so that's the importance of vision. So vision sits at the heart of every single decision that you make and is the guiding light for your strategic intent. So if you haven't rewritten it for your next 3 years, now's the time to sit down and go, right, how do we make this inspiring for staff? All right, that's your Culture and Coffee podcast that's your Culture, Coffee and Beatles podcast for the day. If you've got any requests, you can email me at colin@colindellis.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. Otherwise, have a great day. Ta-ra for now.